know how this happened because 1 week ago in my Sephora VIB sale guide, I mentioned, I don't know that I'll really be picking anything up. I shared a few products that were on my wish list, but this bag right here is full of a ton of products we didn't even talk about in that video. And anything that I said I might pick up, I did not get. And instead I got a full face of other products. So I think we should put these on my face today. I was gonna do just a haul, but I was like, no girl, wait. This needs to be a try-on haul so we can experience these products together. And to kick this full face off, I'm so excited to say that this portion of today's video is sponsored by the Inkey List. I have to say, I was actually really starstruck when the Inkey List reached out to me for this video because I love this brand. Their products are so high quality, but they're super affordable. And if you're shopping the Sephora sale while it's still going, we have a tiny bit more time left, you can get these for up to 20% off depending on your tier at Sephora. So today for our base, we'll be starting with the Omega Water Cream and then a little bit of the Caffeine Eye Cream. Now, I love this moisturizer for my daytime routine underneath my foundation because I'm always looking for a moisturizer that's this texture to put underneath foundation because I feel like it just goes on with this gorgeous gel-like texture that not only soaks into the skin really well and leaves me hydrated, but it makes the perfect base for foundation. They describe it as being ideal for oily combination skin, but I have dry skin and I still really love this moisturizer, like I said, especially for daytime because I still feel like it's hydrating enough without being like too thick or anything. That product still sits really well on top of it. It also has ceramides, niacinamide, and you get this kind of like dewy finish. Now we're gonna do a little bit of eye cream. They have a few different eye creams from the Inkey List, but this is their Caffeine eye cream. And the caffeine helps reduce puffiness. We actually have 3 different concealers to try today, so we'll help it out with a nice hydrated under eye. And this also has Matrixyl 3000 in it. And just like the moisturizer, I feel like it's a good texture for makeup to go on top of. Do you see what I mean? I feel like my face just looks really dewy and hydrated, ready for makeup on top of. And I don't typically share too much like skin prep on camera like this, but I swear it makes all the difference in your makeup on top of that, just having a really well prepped base. So thank you so much to the Inkey List for partnering with me on today's video. And let's jump into the next product in this bag, which is a foundation, well, technically a skin tint. This is from Danessa Myricks. This has been on my list for a minute, okay? So this is called the Yummy Skin Serum Skin Tint. As you may or may not know, I love the Yummy Skin line, so I've been really curious to try this. And I was actually just watching a video from Morgan Turner where she compared like every skin tint that she owns, and she said this was in her top 2, and that was what sold me. I already had my eye on it. And then when she said it was just one of the best, I was like, okay, fine, I'll get it. And I picked up the shade 3, which at first I was worried would be too dark, but then when I was watching, okay, maybe I could have gone with 2, I don't know. I've heard that these run like the lightest shade number 1 is supposed to be super light, which is great, especially if you have fair skin and you find that it's really hard to find a foundation or skin tint or anything that's light enough. Oh, this might be my right shade. It's just slightly yellow. You see what I mean? Like, it's not that the color is off. It might be the undertone. I think it can come together. But I do know shade number 1 is super, super fair. And I was back and forth. I was like, do I do 2 or 3? And it is a skin tint, so it's pretty light sheer coverage. You can get away with a slightly imperfect match since they tend to be super flexible. Wait though, this is higher coverage than I was expecting, I feel like. I was expecting this to be like straight up sheer. I guess not sheer, but this is giving more coverage than I was anticipating. I feel like I'm not blending this out very well. By the way, this is a new brush from Sigma they just launched. This is the F08 Precision Powder. I probably won't use this for powder, but it is one of these little slanted brushes, very similar to like the BK109, which is one of my holy grails for blending out foundations or like cream bronzer. And for this, I wanted to start off kind of just spreading it out with the brush, and then we're gonna go over it with a sponge. And I'm gonna do something unexpected, but lately I've been into a dry sponge. And you know, this is not the first time either. I feel like I've said this before, but I'll go through phases where I'm like, wait, why am I wetting my sponge? There's something about a dry sponge that looks a little more perfected. And it kind of depends on the formula, but for something like this, once it is already spread onto the skin, then taking a dry sponge gives the most flawless look. I wouldn't use a dry sponge right out of the bottle because it would soak it up because this is thin. But to push things into the skin with a dry sponge ends up giving you a slightly different effect than a damp sponge because there's no moisture there. So it just looks a little bit more matte, but in a way that's like perfected and smooth, you know? Okay, the shade match I think came together. I don't think it looks too yellow. I think it sheared out nicely. It might be just like a hair darker than my body. It's so hard to say, but it's definitely not bad. Also, I think I get the hype with this one already. I obviously, with all of these, I will get back to you. A first impression is just a first impression. I like to test things out super thoroughly before I come back and give final thoughts, but right off the bat, I'm like, oh, this is why everyone is obsessed with this skin tint. Even on my forehead, I've been breaking out quite a bit, and because it's like a dewier skin tint, I was nervous it was just gonna emphasize that because of the shine, but I feel like everything is still looking pretty smooth. I like this. I like this a lot. So next we have concealer, and I actually have 3. So I'm like, what do we do? And I can explain. 2 of these I bought in the sale, and one of them I did not, but I wanted to mention it. So the 2 that I picked up, I got the Glossier Stretch Concealer. I feel like I just had to know. I feel like I've heard everyone talking about this forever, and I'm like, fine, I'll get it. We'll see what the hype is about. Same for the Hourglass Concealer, but as you can probably tell, I got a little teeny tiny baby mini of it, which is so cute and so little. And then I actually had this on my wish list. Remember in the video that I referenced earlier, I mentioned that I wanted to pick this up from Saie. This is their new Slip Tint Concealer, not to be confused with their other concealer. This is a new one. And then I got this in PR. I've worn this once, and I actually think I really like it. But they sent me the shade 6, which is definitely too dark for me. I would probably be more like 4, just for reference. But I did want to share those like initial thoughts on this, since I know it's new. Everybody's talking about it. I mentioned it in my wish list. I'll share some swatches for it. I do really like it. It's definitely more of a light medium coverage. It's very thin. I think if I had a better shade match, I'd probably like this even more, but I feel like I can make this shade work. I might even end up mixing it with some of my other concealers. So far I'm liking this. I'm feeling like today, what if we do a combo of these 2? Because I know that the Glossier is very light coverage. So let's start with this, and then if we feel like we need to bump it up, we'll jump over to Hourglass. Okay, this brush is also new from Sigma. This is the F72. It is more of like your precise brush for concealer, and I feel like this would be perfect for a pot concealer like this. Now, I picked this up in the shade 2, and when I opened it, I was a little nervous. I was like, it might be too dark and too yellow for me. But when I swatched it on the back of my hand earlier, I do feel like it's so sheer that I'm not too worried about it. I don't know. That's a little yellow. Again, I don't mind the depth of it. I feel like that is working for me, but it's really yellow. Okay, that looks nice. We've got the side with, the side without. It's very dewy, which is not always, actually that's never, let me clarify, that's never my preference for concealer. But, you know, we have powder to come in and save the day. I also feel like this could be nice for some light coverage spot concealing. What do you think? Should I, wait, what am I thinking? I have 2 eyes. This eye can be the Glossier and this eye can be the Hourglass. Okay, problem solved. This I picked up because of the viral Amaya Cologne makeup routine. I don't know if you've seen this, but this is the concealer that she uses, and I was like, all right, fine, let's see. And she has this super viral makeup routine that's a no foundation routine. And to clarify, when I'm saying no foundation, I don't mean that in the like light coverage, natural look type of way. It's still full glam. There's a lot of product there. It's high coverage, but she's just not using foundation to achieve it. She's just using concealer, cream bronzer, like things like that. And this is the concealer that she uses. So she does it like all on her under eye, on the forehead, around the face. Ever since that, I've seen so many people trying to like replicate the makeup look. So they use the Hourglass concealer, and everyone's been saying it's great for this. So I was like, okay, fine, let's see. I'm gonna put this on the other eye too, just to even it out. Cause here we go. We've got the side by side. As you can see, this is Glossier, much more natural, dewy. Hourglass, more glam, high coverage. I think the Hourglass side looks considerably better, but I also think they're just kind of like 2 different looks for 2 different occasions. You know, hard to compare. Okay, going back to Glossier, I got this. I did. I gave in the Glossier Cloud Paint bronzers. I picked up the shade Saie, which is a very, very light bronzer. I was excited. I feel like sometimes it's hard to find fair versions of like liquid and cream bronzers. I'm not normally a huge liquid bronzer person, but I kind of have a vision of using this to mix in with some of my liquid blushes or even liquid highlights to make a really pretty like bronzy blush actually. And I feel like that's one of the huge benefits to liquid products is that they're very easy to mix together with other things. Okay, wait, I'm actually not seeing anything. By the way, I did go and wet my sponge for this. Maybe I didn't get enough. I was worried that I was gonna be getting too much, so I was like, let me go super light-handed, but I don't know if it's showing up at all, is it? Could be the shade. Maybe I did need the next shade. Maybe this one's too light for me. I'm gonna try using my fingers. I don't like to do this, but I do think it's probably what would be best for this formula. Also like the undertone of this. You see, it's like kind of taupey. So we'll start like this and then try to then go in with the sponge. Okay, that's probably what I need to do. One thing I've always really liked about the cloud paint, even though it's not my personal favorite formula, I do find it super user-friendly just because of the sheerness of it. And I feel like that's gonna be the case with this as well, just because it's not super high pigment, so you don't have to worry that it's not gonna blend out, you know? You can kind of build up slowly. I do feel like this looks nice and natural too. I'll take a little down my neck, you know, whatever's left on the sponge, I'm just gonna kind of drag it down. I also feel like a liquid bronzer you can mix in with foundations too. If you have one that you feel like is too light, you can mix it in. I feel like there are a lot of ways to use a product like this, very, very multi-use. And so far, everything is layering well together. Like it's working just fine with the skin tint. I'm not noticing anything getting picked up. Like everything is working out pretty well today. We're getting lucky. That's not always the case. Okay, now you've seen this everywhere. It is the new Rare Beauty blush. I picked this up out of sheer curiosity, I would say, just because I feel like I have seen this everywhere. And I've actually heard some kind of mixed reviews. It's been super hyped up, but it seems like not everyone likes it because it's a mega glowy blush, which is not always my preference. Actually, it's rarely my preference because you know I'm mostly a matte girl, but we're gonna try it. But before we do, we need some powder. I'm super glowy right now and it's too much. We need to powder this face a little bit. And for that, we will use Huda Beauty Peach Powder. This is the shade Peach Pie. And we'll just tap this over basically the whole face. And if anything, that was the next test for all these products. Is powder gonna lay well on top of them? Sometimes it gets weird when it comes to like super dewy products like that. Powder wants to like morph together and make this like weird, I was gonna say soup, but that's a disgusting description, but you know what I'm talking about when something is so dewy and you try to powder it and you're like, what's happening on my skin? This is looking nice. Okay, blush time. I went with the shade Cheer, which is the one that they're describing as like Selena's perfect shade. This one looks like it kind of had a lilac, almost purpley cool toned shift to it. Very interesting. I'm so intrigued and a little nervous about this, but I know these are shiny and glowy and shimmery and highlightery, so I'm thinking we're gonna wanna go with a very fluffy brush like this. So this is the BK104. I think this is gonna help us out. I didn't wanna go with anything too dense because I feel like that might become a disaster. So I always tap on the back of my hand first. I get nervous. I'm like, I have to see what we're working with before we ruin the makeup. Okay. Do you see what I mean? Do you see? Well, I'll put this on top of bronzer, but there's like this lilac-y shift to it, and I'm either gonna love that or hate it. I don't know. Based on the swatches, it was reminding me of this blush I used to love years and years ago from the Balm, and the blush was in this palette, and it had this like similar look to it, so I was like, is this kind of the same vibe? Wait. This is definitely more subtle than I thought, and I know this is the lightest shade, so it's definitely translating as less, but I was nervous it was gonna be too much. But this looks nice. This does look nice. I also feel like this brush is helping. Had we gone in with a dense brush, I just know it was gonna be a disaster, so something good to keep in mind just with this formula, something really fluffy is probably gonna diffuse it better. Does this look kind of nice? I don't know why. I was a little nervous. Also, you can't convince me that 2016 is not coming back, because we're getting these like shimmery blushes, like shimmery powder products. Also, the new Fenty highlights, which I do have one. They sent me this in PR. It's so fascinating to me because they're really advertising them as like Demi'Glow, very natural. No, those are bold highlights. Like maybe they're natural for Fenty because I feel like their highlights are rather bold, but no, it's like a real highlight. And then we've got this like highlighty blush. I don't know. 2016 is coming back. Okay, I'm feeling like with this shade in particular, I might end up using it more as a blush topper, because I feel like if I were to add more of this product, it's gonna be too shiny for my liking, but I almost want more pigment and more of the pink. So I think the answer to that is to put another blush underneath and then use this on top. But since I have the Fenty one here, let me just put a little bit on just to kind of show you. This is the shade Too Much. I also had the first shade, but I dropped it and it broke. So they're very fragile. Definitely be careful. I think with this, I'm gonna just tap it on with my finger a little bit. It's gonna be hard to tell what's coming from what because I'm putting it over that blush, but you see it also is just like super glowy. Actually, that was a mistake. This is not a good shade for me. You can see that head on. You can see the shadow from the side. It's so beautiful, but head on, you can see it's a little too dark. Yeah, that was a mistake. That was a mistake, but oh well. We're gonna keep going because next up, I have an eyeshadow stick that I wanna try. I picked this up in the bronze shade. So this is the Rare Beauty eyeshadow stick, and the name of this shade is Adventure, and it's this really pretty bronze, which is not normally my preference. I normally like something actually just like matte and simple on the eye, but this looked so pretty in the pictures that I was like, should I try for a bronze? So I'm just gonna kind of try to blend it out with my finger a little bit. Maybe I should have used a base because I feel like that looks a little patchy. Okay, that looks kind of bad, doesn't it? Okay, I feel like the benefit of an eyeshadow stick is that it is supposed to be just really easy. You just apply it haphazardly and then blend it out with your finger. But this one, especially because it is kind of a darker shade compared to my skin tone, maybe next time I need to use a base and a brush. Okay, so as I said, that could have been user error, but I do think it looks pretty bad right now, but I like this shade. I feel like it makes my brown eyes look really nice, and I also think it would make a really pretty eyeliner shade too. Okay, I'm gonna go do lashes and brows, and then we'll be back for lips. Okay, I also threw a little bronzer in my crease to distract from how patchy the eyeshadow stick was looking, but look at my lashes. I've been using this from Essence. This is not from Sephora. This is like $5, but this is their Lash Without Limits in the shade brown, and it is a wonderful brown shade. I've really been loving this. But for lips, this product actually is not from Sephora. This is not part of my Sephora haul, but I thought I lost it for a second. But I figured I would share it with you because it's brand new. This came to me in PR from R.e.m. This is their new Glossy Balm. So I thought I'd throw it in. You know, we're trying out new products. First, I'm gonna do a little bit of lip liner. This is the Tower 28 one liner in the shade Fill Me In. Okay, now we'll take a little bit of this. Oh, smells good. It's like a very sheer brown. The doe foot's kind of weird though. Like doesn't really pick up much. Okay, that looks nice. This whole look was very great until I decided to use a highlight that was too dark. So like from head on, kind of messed up. From the side though, beautiful look. Okay, I feel like we actually have a lot of wins in here. A couple of duds, maybe, potentially. But overall, I like this makeup look, especially from the side. You're like, oh, what a beautiful glowy look. But as always, updates to come. A huge thank you to the Inkey list for partnering with me on today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will go ahead and see you in my next one. Bye.